Welcome to Growleap Academy, the podcast that helps you grow smarter, live clearer, and focus on what truly matters. So, today we're kicking off this deep dive by exploring a feeling that's probably really familiar to, well, almost everyone listening.
Which one's that?
That sense of being constantly overwhelmed, stretched thin, always busy, running around. But then you get to the end of the day and you kind of look back and think, what did I actually do? Did anything important really get moved forward?
Oh, yeah, that feeling. It's pervasive, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if you're deep in a demanding career or, juggling family stuff or just trying to handle modern life. It hits everyone.
Exactly. Your calendar is jammed, your inbox is a disaster zone, you're always in motion.
But there's that nagging feeling underneath it all.
Yeah.
That, frustration. Where did all that effort actually go?
Right. And the first thought, the knee-jerk reaction for most of us is, I just need more time.
Or I need to be more efficient, work faster, multitask better.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're told.
Yeah, we immediately frame it as a time problem, a scarcity of hours. If I just had one more hour, if I could just shave off a few minutes here and there.
But what if that's not actually the root of it? What if that whole way of thinking is, well, a bit off?
You mean the problem isn't the clock?
Maybe not primarily. What if the real energy leak, the thing that's truly making us feel so overwhelmed, isn't the lack of minutes, but a lack of something else?
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lack of what?
That's where things get interesting. It kind of challenges that whole time management gospel, doesn't it? Scheduling, productivity hacks. They're useful tools, sure, but maybe they're just treating the symptoms.
So what's the cause then?
What if the real culprit isn't your calendar, but the state of your mind? All that mental clutter, that constant low hum of uncertainty you carry around, the sheer cognitive load that just drains you before you even start the work.
So the feeling of being busy isn't about actual progress necessarily?
It might just be reflecting internal chaos.
Yeah.
Your brain feels full, definitely, but maybe not with meaningful accomplishments. It's full of static.
Static,
Like all the should I questions, the what ifs, the I'll figure that out later thoughts that just pile up. And look, this isn't about being lazy or anything. It's a specific kind of mental exhaustion.
the kind that comes from too many options.
Exactly. Too many possibilities swirling around, too many things left undecided, all competing for your attention. That feeling that everything might be important, so you can't quite commit your focus to what actually is important.
And I guess if you're someone who's, driven and capable, you probably feel this even more intensely.
It's a trap, because
Yeah.
the more you can do, the more ATSO seems to pull at you. It's like standing in a hallway with 1,000 open doors,
Yeah.
but you have no map.
Yeah.
No idea which one actually leads where you want to get.
And just standing there trying to decide, that's exhausting in itself.
That indecision, that ambiguity, that's the real energy drain. And it's especially tough for smart, capable people because their ability often generates more opportunities, more info, more potential paths.
Which just creates more mental clutter. It's a cycle.
Precisely. More clutter, more decision fatigue. So if you want to break that cycle, you got to look beyond the clock. You have to address the root cause.
Which brings us right to the core idea we want to unpack in this deep dive. The big shift in perspective.
It's that.
It's this. You're not out of time. You're out of clarity.
You're not out of time, you're out of clarity. That
Yeah.
that really reframes the whole thing, doesn't it?
Totally. We obsess about squeezing more into the day, bending time to our will. But maybe the biggest win isn't adding minutes. Maybe it's gaining focus.
Because fundamentally, most of us aren't really short on hours in the day. We're short on intention.
Short on intention, meaning.
Meaning we react more than we act. We jump at the loudest notification, the newest email, whatever feels most urgent in the moment.
Instead of acting from a place of, knowing what truly matters first.
Exactly. And look, the external stuff, the meetings, the deadlines, the constant pings, that's all real. It does take up our time. No one's denying that.
Right, those are real pressures.
But the argument here isn't that they aren't part of the problem. It's that the real drain, the thing that makes us feel so overwhelmed, is the mental state those pressures create. It's that fog that rolls in when you have too much coming at you and no clear filter.
No way to know what actually deserves your energy right now.
And when everything feels urgent, well, nothing really is it? But our brains don't see it that way. They just scream, all of this needs attention and a W.
Yeah, that panic mode.
And that pressure, that lack of clear priority,
Yeah.
it pushes us into this state of constant diffusion, spreading ourselves thin.
So we say yes to things we're not even sure about.
Because we don't have a clear reason to say no. Or We try to multitask constantly, shoving tasks into every tiny gap, checking emails while you're trying to eat breakfast, planning your response to your boss while you're walking the dog.
Guilty. I totally do that. Trying to layer things, thinking it's efficient.
We all do.
Yeah.
But you never feel fully present, do you? Or truly effective in any one of those things. You're just splitting your focus.
Yeah. You're always doing, always moving, but it feels like treading water.
Exactly. You check off boxes, fire off replies, run errands. But those big, important projects,
Yeah.
the stuff that really matters deep down, it feels like they barely move. Or you don't even get to them.
And that's the key insight, isn't it? Doing more isn't the same as doing what matters.
That's the heart of it. Such a critical distinction. Busyness feels productive. It can even feel, I don't know, virtuous sometimes.
Like proof you're working hard.
Right. But if that activity isn't aligned with what's truly important to you, if it's not actually moving you towards a meaningful goal, then it's just noise.
Just spinning your wheels.
It's motion, sure, but not progress. Like that rocking chair analogy, you're moving, but you're not going anywhere.
So if we feel like this, it's not because we're inherently flawed. It's not about laziness or lack of willpower.
Not at all. The perspective here is much more compassionate. You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. You're just trying to run in too many directions at once without a clear map or compass.
Your energy is getting scattered.
Exactly. Your attention, which is finite, remember, is being fragmented across way too many fuzzy targets.
And the modern world practically encourages that scattering.
Oh, it's built for it. Every app, every alert, every news feed is optimized to grab a little slice of your attention. They give you those tiny, quick dopamine hits.
That feeling of, oh, I saw that, or I responded to that.
Right, that illusion of being on top of things or staying informed. They are masters at hijacking your focus.
Meanwhile, that quiet inner voice, the one that actually knows what's important,
Gets completely drowned out.
Yeah.
Is trying to tell you, hey, this is the thing, but it can't compete with the constant shouting from the outside world.
It's like trying to whisper in a hurricane.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this whole situation, this overwhelm driven by scattered attention, leads to this really powerful alternative question we should be asking ourselves.
Instead of, how can I fit more in?
Exactly. Instead of that, ask, what would make today feel clear?
What would make today feel clear? Huh. That lands differently, doesn't it?
It really does. It shifts the focus entirely. It's not about brute force, more hours, more speed. It's about less confusion, less internal fog.
Because clarity, it's not just about getting stuff done faster.
No, it's about a feeling. It's about peace, really.
Yeah.
Imagine waking up and not just having a vague idea of your to-do list, but knowing with real certainty what the most important thing is.
And also knowing what you don't need to worry about right now.
Yes, knowing exactly what not to do and feeling totally okay with letting that other stuff go, at least for today. That's clarity. It's this calm, intentional focus.
Okay, and that kind of clarity. It doesn't come from a new planner or a fancy app, does it?
Probably not. The insight here is that this kind of clarity comes from managing your attention much more effectively, not just managing your time blocks on a calendar.
Because time just ticks by regardless.
Time is fixed, yeah. 24 hours, that's what we get. But your attention, that's where you have agency. That's where you can choose. Directing that attention wisely is the real key.
That's the key to unlocking that feeling of having enough time, enough energy.
It really is. It's about quality of focus, not just quantity of hours.
Wow. Okay. So managing attention leads to clarity. Clarity cuts through the overwhelm, which brings us back to that trap you mentioned earlier. Confusing being busy with actually being productive or even fulfilled.
Right. And this is almost a cultural sickness, isn't it? We wear busyness like it's a badge of honor.
Totally. Someone asks how you are, and the default answer is almost always busy or so busy.
And it feels important. Like having a packed schedule somehow validates you, makes you feel in demand, like things are happening around you, even if not because of you.
There is a weird comfort in that constant motion, isn't there? Even if you're just spinning.
Absolutely. It creates a sensation of momentum, maybe relevance. But here's the hard truth we need to grapple with. Being busy is not the same as being productive.
And it's definitely not the same as being fulfilled.
Definitely not. That distinction is crucial. We've all had those days, right? Back-to-back meetings, endless emails, putting out little fires all day.
And you collapse at the end, exhausted, thinking, well, I was really busy, so it must have been a productive day.
Right. But if none of that activity was actually connected to what genuinely matters to you, your core goals, your values, then, well, like we said, it was just noise.
Activity without alignment.
Exactly. It's the difference between running around frantically in circles and taking focused steps towards a clear destination. That rocking chair, again, lots of movement, zero progress towards where you want to be.
So the real way to measure your day isn't the number of check marks on a list.
No. It's about how aligned your actions were with your deeper purpose, with what truly matters.
And that kind of alignment, it doesn't shout, does it?
It's quiet. It doesn't give you that same hit of external validation that, say, clearing your inbox does. Nobody gives you likes for spending an hour deeply focused on something meaningful that doesn't have an immediate visible result.
Society rewards the hustle, the late nights.
The visible busyness, those become the badges of honor. Replying to emails at midnight, jam-packed schedules.
But meaning, that's internal.
It really is. Meaning shows up quietly. It shows up in how you feel when the day ends. Did you invest your limited energy wisely? Did you nudge yourself even slightly closer to something important? Did your actions reflect your values or just your obligations?
Those are the questions that cut through the busyness BS, aren't they?
They really are. Asking yourself, maybe when you catch yourself bragging about how busy you are, just pause and ask, am I moving with purpose here or am I just moving?
What a great filter question.
Because the difference is huge. A full calendar might mean you're surviving the day's demands, but a meaningful day means you're actually living in alignment with what matters to you.
And the paradox, the really cool part, is that when you actually focus on that clarity, on meaning, on intentionally not doing everything,
You don't end up with less time. It feels counterintuitive, but it's true.
you actually create more space.
Yes, because when you clarify what's truly important, you naturally start saying no, or at least not now, to the things that aren't. You subtract the noise. You reduce the diffusion of your energy.
And that freed up energy and attention.
That's where you find not just extra minutes, but actual freedom.
Yeah.
The freedom to direct your life intentionally instead of just being pulled along by the currents.
Okay, this makes so much sense. Busyness is a trap. Clarity is the way out. And it's about attention, not just time. But what is stealing that attention, that clarity? It feels like more than just my phone buzzing.
Oh, it definitely is. While the phone, the notifications, the emails, those are the obvious external culprits, sure.
Yeah.
But the deeper, more insidious thieves, they operate internally.
Inside our own heads.
Exactly. We're talking about the invisible stuff, the hidden drains on your mental energy that you might not even notice.
These we don't realize are costing us.
Precisely. It's all that mental noise we mentioned. The background processing your brain is doing constantly. The decisions you haven't quite made yet. The open loops from unfinished conversations or projects. The half-formed ideas floating around. That endless stream of, should I? What about? Questions.
Ugh. I'll deal with that later pile in your brain.
Yes, that pile. These aren't just little background thoughts. They're genuine hidden time thieves. They take up valuable mental real estate and sip away at your cognitive energy all day long without producing anything useful.
Okay, so unpack that a bit. How does something like indecision actually drain energy?
Well, think about it. Every single time you put off making a decision, even a small one, like should I reply to this email now or later? Or how should I start tackling this project? Or even what should we have for dinner? You essentially plant a little seed of mental clutter.
It doesn't just disappear because you delayed it.
No, it hangs around. It becomes an open loop in your mind. It's like, imagine having dozens of apps open on your phone that you're not actively using.
They're still running in the background, using up the battery.
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. These unresolved decisions are just like those background apps, constantly drawing a small but steady stream of your mental energy.
And then there's that feeling when you're trying to focus on one task, but your mind is just in everywhere else.
Right. That's mental multitasking. And it's not just about flicking between browser tabs. It's about trying to write an important report while also mentally replaying that awkward conversation from this morning, worrying about picking up the kids on time, making a mental grocery list, and thinking about that phone call you need to make later.
Your brain is juggling like crazy.
It is. You're trying to do deep work, but your brain is simultaneously running 5 or 6 other unrelated processes. It feels completely exhausting.
Utterly. Like you're wading through mud.
Because you are, mentally speaking. And maybe the sneakiest culprits of all are what we call mental loops.
Mental loop.
Yeah. These are those recurring thoughts or unresolved problems that just go round and round in your head because they lack closure. Maybe it's some feedback your boss gave you that you keep replaying, or a big life decision you're avoiding, or a difficult conversation you know you need to have but keep putting off.
They just keep circling back.
Over and over. They stay open, like a stuck record player needle, constantly demanding a bit of your background attention. Your brain keeps trying to solve them or process them, but without a decision or action, they just stay stuck there, gnawing away at your focus and your energy reserves.
And the really wild part is that these invisible drains, the indecision, the multitasking thoughts, the loops that can actually be more tiring than doing the actual work itself.
That's the surprising, counterintuitive truth.
Yeah.
Your brain is fundamentally wired to seek completion. It wants to close those loops. When it can't, because you're delaying or avoiding, it keeps throwing resources at them in the background. That constant, fruitless churning is incredibly draining.
So that's why you can have a day where you barely moved from your chair, maybe just answered emails, and still feel completely wiped out by the evening.
Precisely. You weren't running a physical marathon, but you were running a mental one. There's this great image. Imagine trying to run a marathon while carrying 5 grocery bags, a backpack, and a ringing phone.
Wow. Yeah.
That's what thinking feels like when your mind is overloaded with unresolved loops and decisions. You're carrying all that mental baggage, burning through energy even when you're sitting still.
That paints a really clear picture of the cost. So if traditional time management just focuses on scheduling the tasks, it completely misses this whole internal dimension.
It really does. You can have the most perfectly color-coded schedule in the world, but if your mind is still a whirlwind of open loops and undecided things, you won't have the mental clarity or the energy to actually follow through effectively. The issue isn't just the slots on your calendar. It's the state of your internal operating system.
You need fewer mental tabs open, more internal resolution.
Exactly.
Yep.
You need clarity. You need
Okay.
closure.
Okay, this is making a ton of sense, but hearing about all these hidden drains, honestly, it feels a little overwhelming in itself. Like, how do you even start to tackle something that's so internal and pervasive? Is there a practical path forward?
Yes, there absolutely is. And the good news, it's not about adding some complicated time-sucking system on top of everything else. It's actually simpler than that. It's about adopting a different mindset and using a few straightforward, powerful steps.
Okay.
The whole goal is to create more time, more energy, more focus, not by trying to cram more hours into the day, but by actively subtracting the noise from your mind.
Subtracting noise, I really like the sound of that. Feels lighter already. What does that look like in practice?
Well, we can frame it as a simple 3-step clarity system. Think of it like a mental detox process. It's designed to clear out that static we've been talking about so you can finally see clearly, sharpen your focus, and stop wasting precious energy on mental clutter.
A mental detox. Okay, I'm ready. Lay out the steps for me. What's step 1?
Step 1 is what we call the clarity scan. This is all about getting that internal noise out of your head and onto paper or screen or whatever works for you.
So you start by asking.
The core question is simple. What's taking up space in my mind right now?
And the answer is just everything. All the worries, tasks, ideas, reminders.
Everything. You literally sit down for a few minutes, maybe 10, maybe 20, grab a notebook, open a blank document, take a deep breath, and just download. Let it all spill out. Write down everything that's buzzing around in your mental orbit.
Right.
Those decisions you haven't made, the emails nagging at you, the calls you need to return, the projects floating around, the things you're worried might happen, the little ideas you had, the random reminders. Anything that feels unfinished or is demanding even a tiny bit of your mental bandwidth.
And the key here is no organizing, no judging.
Crucial point. Absolutely no organizing at this stage. Don't organize, just download. The goal isn't to create a neat to-do list yet. It's simply to externalize the thoughts, get them out of the echo chamber of your mind and into a visible format.
Like dumping out a messy drawer so you can finally see what's inside.
Exactly. It's like finally listing out all those hidden apps running in the background on your mental phone. And honestly, the first time you do this, you might be genuinely shocked.
Shocked by how much is in there.
Yeah. You'll likely be surprised, maybe even a bit horrified, by just how much stuff you've been carrying around unconsciously. It's like seeing dozens and dozens of browser tabs open in your head that you didn't even realize were there.
So the scan itself isn't the solution, but it's the essential first step, making the invisible visible.
Precisely. It's a mind visibility scan. And the power comes from just that active acknowledgement. Why? Because what you can see, you can sort. And what you sort, you can stop carrying around. You can't manage the clutter if you're pretending it doesn't exist, so get it out. That's step 1.
Okay, got it. So now I have this big, potentially messy mind download. What's step 2?
Step 2 is the priority question. Now that you can see all the noise, the next step is to find the signal within it, to focus. You look at everything you just downloaded and ask yourself a very specific question.
Which is,
What truly matters right now?
okay, but how do you figure that out when everything feels like it's yelling for attention?
Great question. This isn't about picking what's loudest or what feels most urgent because someone else put a deadline on it. It's about identifying the one or maybe two things on that list that, if you actually did them or decided them today, would make the biggest positive difference.
The biggest positive difference.
Yeah. What would genuinely move the needle for you? What would relieve the most significant chunk of that mental weight you're carrying? What would bring the most clarity or forward momentum?
So the guiding question isn't what's on fire, it's something deeper.
Exactly. The specific guiding question we suggest is this. If I only got one thing done today, what would leave me feeling clear, calm, and on track?
Clear, calm, and on track. I love that. It frames the priority around your internal state, not just external output.
That's the power of it. This question acts like your compass. It cuts through the clutter, the guilt about everything else you could be doing, the external pressures. It forces you to shift out of that reactive firefighting mode.
And into intentional mode, choosing your focus based on how you want to feel.
Precisely. You're defining success for the day not by volume, but by impact and alignment.
And does focusing on just that one thing actually help with the rest of the overwhelming list?
Surprisingly often, yes. There's this interesting effect where giving your full, undivided attention to that single most meaningful priority can often make some of the other items on the list just fall away. Maybe they resolve themselves, or you realize they weren't that important after all, or the clarity you gain from doing the one thing makes tackling the others much easier.
Focusing your energy creates its own clarity.
It simplifies the landscape. Yeah.
Okay, so step 1, clarity scan, get it all out. Step 2, priority question, find the one thing that brings clarity, calm, and gets you on track. What's the third piece?
Step 3 is rhythm over rigidity. This is all about letting go of the idea that you need a perfect, minute-by-minute, ironclad schedule that completely falls apart the second something unexpected happens.
Because life always throws curveballs.
Always. And trying to force your messy, unpredictable life into perfectly neat, rigid boxes is just, well, it's a recipe for constant frustration and feeling like a failure.
So instead of rigid schedules,
You create rhythms. Think of them as gentle, consistent patterns that help guide your days and weeks, but without choking the life out of them. They provide structure, but also flexibility.
rhythms, like establishing certain routines or anchor points in the week.
Exactly like that. Think of them as helpful rituals or anchors. They build momentum and consistency, but without that crushing pressure of sticking to a strict timetable perfectly.
Can you give some examples?
Sure, maybe it's doing that clarity scan for 20 minutes every Monday morning to set your intention for the week. Or maybe it's blocking out a consistent 90-minute or 2-hour window first thing each morning for your deep, focused work, your priority task.
Like a protected time block.
Right. Or it could be as simple as a 5-minute check-in with yourself at the end of each workday to close loops and plan for tomorrow. These aren't rigid rules, they're supportive structures.
So it's less about perfection and more about creating these helpful recurring patterns.
Yes, they should feel supportive, consistent, but also forgiving. Like your heartbeat, it's steady, it's reliable, it keeps things going. But if you miss a beat occasionally, the whole system doesn't collapse. The underlying rhythm helps you get back on track.
And when you combine that rhythm with the clarity from the first 2 steps.
That's when your day starts to feel less like a chaotic battlefield, where you're constantly fighting off distractions and demands.
And more like flow.
Exactly. More like a flow. You're moving intentionally, with purpose, guided by your priorities, anchored by your rhythms, and feeling a sense of calm amidst it all.
That whole system, scan, prioritize, rhythm, it really does feel like a fundamentally different approach. It's addressing the internal state, the mental noise, not just rearranging the deck chairs on the schedule.
It is. And the beauty of it, I think, is that it's primarily about subtraction, removing the noise, removing the unnecessary, rather than piling on more complex techniques you have to manage. It's about simplifying and focusing.
Okay. So for everyone listening right now who's nodding along, feeling that overwhelm, maybe feeling a little bit hopeful, how do they start actually doing this? How do we begin to reclaim that mental sharpness starting like today?
Right. First things first, a little self-compassion. Remember, you're not broken. You're not inherently bad at time management. You're doing your best trying to navigate a world that is, frankly, designed to overwhelm your brain and hijack your attention.
It's not a personal failing.
Not at all. And the big shift, remember, isn't about finding ways to do more. It's about learning to think sharper.
And clarity is the key to thinking sharper.
It's the absolute foundation. Clarity is what unlocks your time, quiets the internal stress, and brings that sense of meaning back into what you do day to day. Without it, you're just stuck spinning your wheels, mistaking motion for actual progress.
Okay, so give us some super practical, actionable steps, things someone could literally start doing this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
All right, let's get concrete. Here are a few powerful things you can try right away. First one, close one loop today.
Okay, directly attacking those hidden energy drains we talked about.
Exactly. Think back to that clarity scan idea, or just tune into that background hum in your mind right now. Identify one thing, just one, that's been hanging out there, unresolved.
Could be anything.
Could be that email you keep putting off, that small decision that's been lingering, that conversation you need to initiate, maybe a small task you started but didn't finish. Find one open loop.
And the instruction is,
Just close it, finish it, decide it, say the thing. Or, alternatively, consciously decide to release it entirely if you realize it genuinely doesn't matter anymore. Bring it to some kind of resolution.
get it off the mental books.
Yes. And the claim here is pretty bold, but I think it holds true for many. Closing even one nagging open loop can restore more mental energy than you might think. Maybe even more than a couple of hours of extra sleep would.
Wow. That's a significant return on investment for one small action. Why?
Because it stops that background processing drain. It frees up that mental RAM. Your brain gets to mentally check that item off its invisible list, and you get that cognitive energy back to use on something else.
Okay, that makes sense. Actionable step number 2.
Create your personal not-to-do list.
Interesting. The opposite of what we usually do.
Right. We're so conditioned to make endless to-do lists, always focused on adding more, accumulating tasks. But real clarity often comes from consciously defining what you won't do, what you're going to intentionally let go of, at least for now.
So actively deciding to ignore certain things.
Yes. Take a moment this week and write down maybe 3 things. 3 things that are currently vying for your attention, maybe things you feel you should be doing, but that you're going to consciously decide not to focus on this week.
They might be good things, just not the right things for now.
Exactly. Maybe they're important long term, but they aren't the priority right now. This isn't about quitting or failure. It's about strategic focus.
So it's not quitting, it's focus.
Precisely. By explicitly naming what you're putting on the back burner, you free up mental energy. You remove that low-grade hum of guilt that comes from having things perpetually languishing on your mental should-do list.
Okay, makes sense. Step number 3.
Name your North Star.
Connecting back to that idea of meaning and alignment.
Exactly. Because when you get lost in the weeds of daily tasks and demands, when the fog of busyness rolls in, you need a bigger anchor. You need something to orient yourself towards. So ask yourself that bigger question. Ultimately, what am I really trying to build or achieve with my time? What's the larger purpose or direction I'm heading in?
Find your why.
Find your why. And then this is key. Make it visible. Write it down. Put it on a sticky note by your computer. Make it your phone background. Write it in the front of your journal. Keep it somewhere you'll see it regularly.
So it acts as a constant reminder.
Yes, it's your true north. When you feel scattered or overwhelmed, glancing at your North Star helps you recenter. It helps you apply that priority question, what really matters right now, much more effectively, because you're filtering it through your larger purpose.
Love that. Okay, and the final practical step. Number 4.
Design a 3-hour clarity window this week.
Ooh, blocking out serious time.
Yes, this is about putting focused attention management into practice in a more substantial way. Look at your calendar for the coming week and actively block out a significant chunk of time, ideally around 3 hours, if you can manage it for deep, uninterrupted work.
Uninterrupted is the magic word there, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. This time is not for catching up on email, bouncing between small tasks, or attending optional meetings. This time is sacred. You need to protect it like a meeting with your future self.
How do you protect it?
Turn off all notifications, phone, computer, everything.
Yeah.
Close all unnecessary browser tabs and applications. Let your colleagues or family know you're unavailable during this window unless it's a true emergency. Create a bubble of focus.
And what should you do during this clarity window?
Use it for something meaningful. Work on that top priority you identified. Tackle a challenging part of a project that requires deep thought. Do something that aligns directly with your North Star. This is your chance to make real, significant progress on something that truly matters, free from the usual barrage of distractions.
That kind of deep, sustained focus feels like a lost art these days.
It really is. And that's why carving out space for it is so incredibly powerful for regaining clarity and feeling productive in a meaningful way.
Okay, those 4 steps: close a loop, not to-do list, North Star, clarity window. Those feel really concrete, like things you could actually schedule and start implementing.
They absolutely are. And to make it even easier to get started and really feel the difference, there's a simple challenge you could try.
A clarity challenge. Tell me more.
Yeah. Just a really simple, focused practice to try out for the next 3 days. It's designed to be low friction, easy to stick with, but potent enough to give you a real taste of this shift in mindset. The tagline is 3 days, 3 steps, one new you.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Walk us through the 3-day practice.
It's super simple. For the next 3 days, you just commit to this daily rhythm.
In the morning, take just 5 minutes, that's it, to do a mini clarity scan. Quick download. What's swirling around right now, just jot it down, get it out of your head.
5 minutes. Scan. Got it.
Second, sometime around midday, take literally 1 minute. Just 60 seconds to pause and ask yourself the priority question for that day. What's the one thing that, if I accomplish it, would make today feel aligned and clear? Just recenter yourself on that one key thing.
1 minute. Prioritize.
And third, in the evening, maybe before you wrap up work or wind down for the night, take 3 minutes to actively name one loop you closed today, even if it was tiny. Maybe you finally made that phone call or sent that email or made that small decision. Acknowledge it. Maybe even mentally pat yourself on the back. Celebrate that small act of closure.
3 minutes. Celebrate closure. Scan, prioritize, celebrate closure. Morning, midday, evening.
That's the rhythm for 3 days. Scan, prioritize, close, and celebrate. It's small actions, right? Barely takes 10 minutes total out of your day.
But the potential impact is significant.
Potentially huge, because these small actions start building a powerful habit. They begin training your brain to notice the mental clutter, to intentionally choose focus, and to value resolution. It's not about doing it perfectly, it's about the consistent practice.
Because ultimately, this idea of clarity, it's not like some personality trait you either have or you don't.
Exactly, that's such an important point. Clarity isn't a fixed trait, it's a practice. It's a skill you develop. It's a muscle you strengthen through these kinds of repeated, intentional actions, however small.
And when you practice it consistently.
Day after day, even just in these small ways, it really can become your superpower, especially in this crazy, noisy, distraction-filled world we live in. The power to consciously choose your focus, to direct your precious energy wisely, and to build a life that feels less frantic, less overwhelming, and much more meaningful.
Clarity as a superpower. I love that framing. It really shifts the perspective from feeling like a victim of overwhelm to feeling empowered to choose your focus. It really does sound like the ultimate shortcut isn't about finding more time, but about cultivating that clarity.
That's the core message, and it's something genuinely accessible to all of us starting right now, with just a few minutes of conscious attention each day.
Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive with Growleap Academy. We hope it left you with something to think about and something to grow with. Maybe consider this. What if the most productive thing you could do this week isn't adding something new to your plate, but consciously deciding what to take off? If you found value in today's deep dive, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.